If you're a fan of progressive rock, you know my next guest here on All Mixed Up, Derek Shulman, who, of course, spent so many years with Gentle Giant. He has a brand new book that's coming out in early October, Giant Steps, My Improbable Journey from Stage Lights to Executive Heights. Derek, good morning and welcome to All Mixed Up.
Nice to see you, Jim, and it's good to be here.
There are a number of hilarious stories in the book, a lot of serious stuff, but a number of very, very funny things, one of which involves your brother. It's the early days of your musical career. He plays the trumpet. You want him to play saxophone. How difficult could it be? I think is what you said to him.
Well, he said, Phil, if you want to be in the band, buy a van and get a saxophone. And that's what he did. This is way at the beginning. So this is before Gentle Giant, of course. This is my first group, Simon Dupree and the Big Sound. And we were just literally getting our chops together to start a real band to just go play in the local area in England. So yeah, that was you get a van and get a sax and learn it.
How difficult was it for him to learn how to play the saxophone?
Believe it or not, not too difficult because honestly, we were very lucky in that we came from a very musical family. My father was a musician who could literally pick up any instrument within 10 minutes master it like he played it for 50 years. And so I think that DNA filtered down to his kids and Phil as well as myself and Ray, my brother, who were both in the band. I think we picked up some of our father's DNA and the ability to pick up an instrument and say, okay, how does that work? And, look at a score and say, okay, well, let's try this. And within, I said 10 minutes, I'm being glib, but within a little while, being able to at least master the basics of it, playing instruments.
You end up recording in the Abbey Road studios, and there were a lot of very famous names associated with that. You're working with George Martin, Alan Parsons comes into play in this point, and you get a chance to go into the studio where the Beatles' instruments are. But not just that, there's the bed that John and Yoko famously have put into the studio. And I wouldn't be able to do the story justice, but if you could talk about jumping up and down on that bed and who walks in.
Well, that was that was a blunder to say the least. But yeah, they obviously had the run of the studio. Generally, the groups that were signed to EMI, and this is my first group signed by Dupree and the Big Sound. We were on the same label, Parlophone, which is great. And we had 3 hour sessions. Every band, no matter who you were, had 3 hour sessions with various engineers. We had Jeff Emerick as our engineer, who was the Beatles' engineer. And during one, no, I think it was one of our third single or whatever, the Beatles had the run of the place. Whatever they wanted to go in, they went in. And they usually left the instruments around. Some, usually, no, they usually pack it, but for whatever reason, the instruments were left out. So I think George's Gretsch was just left there sitting on a stand and the bed was there. And being the stupid idiots that we were, we said, "Wow, a bed! This must be John and Yoko's bed." And we took our shoes off, and this is myself and my brother Phil, and started trampolining on the bed. What the hell, But you know what? The people upstairs, up in the control room, they were cracking up too. I mean, they thought it was a lot of fun. We were jumping on the Beatles bed. However, we didn't know that John and Yoko were going to come back and make sure that everything was okay with their bed. And so we turned around, and sure enough, at the end of the bed, we saw John and Yoko, and John said, "Hey, what the F are you doing?" And Yoko was even worse with the language. It just said, "Okay, you guys get the okay." We quietly, as I actually said, it was his fault. He told me to. My brother Phil, which was wrong. I mean, we both, coordinate our efforts, but nevertheless, yeah, we were admonished by John and Yoko to get off their bed, and and the crumpled sheets were all over the place. And, we slunked off into the control room and said, oops, can you tell we're sorry?
One of the other stories that I found very, very funny involves the band you've been referring to, Simon Dupree. And it was the song Broken Hearted Pirates. And you make an appearance on Beat Club on German television. And if that isn't, Derek, a Spinal Tap moment like Stonehenge, I don't know what is. The video you can find on YouTube, and it is just, I guess, unintentionally funny.
Oh, it was deliberately funny. Because we knew the song was okay. Well, we knew the song was kind of hokey. Nevertheless, our manager said you should do it. It could be a hit. And in fact, I don't know if I put it in the book, but Dudley Moore, I don't know if you know who he is. He played piano on this track.
You do mention that, as a matter of fact.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So we went to Germany and did a live version of Broken Hearted Pirates, and it was yeah, we were kind of like making fun of the song and making fun of ourselves. To tell you the truth, we were swinging on the beams and God knows what else. But yeah, that was towards the very end of the group, knowing that we were going to morph into Gentle Giant, so we didn't give a shit. To be honest with you. Excuse me.
So let's fast forward from Simon Dupree past Gentle Giant. You're now an executive uh, with Jon Bon Jovi, and you invite him to your son's bris. Now, like John, I was raised Catholic. I've been to dozens and dozens of baptisms, and the priest will hold the newly baptized baby up for the congregation to see and welcome this new person into the Catholic Church. When the rabbi raised your son up in the air, John's reaction to what happened next was just incredible. I imagine myself being in that situation. I've never been to a bris. I can imagine I would have had the exact same reaction John did.
Well, John and Doc, actually, Doc was there as well, Doc McGee. And I kind of warned them. I said, listen, the bris is, where they cut my son Noah, his little dick off, a little piece of his, and they said, no, that's not really going to happen. And so I said, yeah, John, yeah, it is. So, and there's a party afterwards and we celebrate, etc. But of course, when the rabbi took the baby from my father-in-law, and my son yelled, and John almost, I mean, literally, he was there. We were around, my son, and he almost fainted. I mean, he really did. He said, "Oh no, I can't believe this. This is not happening." He turned away. Doc held him up, so, but and the yell, of course, that went up was pretty extreme because my poor kid was in pain for a few seconds. But what they do is the rabbi puts their finger in a glass of wine to stymie the pain to a degree. But you know what? After 8 days, you're suddenly a different person, to say the least.
Let's go back to Gentle Giant for a moment. You talk a number of times in the book about being on the road with Black Sabbath and what an unlikely pairing you said that was. And I think back, Derek, to some of the shows like at the Fillmore East where you could see Ike and Tina Turner and Mongo Santa Maria on the same bill, or the Guess Who and Buddy Miles. We expected that as rock fans to see different genres. What made it so bizarre, so difficult with you guys being on the same bill with a band like Black Sabbath?
Well, Sabbath were in there literally had just made it in the States. I mean, Iron Man and that album that was on was huge. I mean, they had just made they'd done two tours before, but this is their big headline tour. We were great friends with Sabbath. I mean, we had the same management, and we loved those guys. We hung out together, and so management at the time, which afterwards we found out they were mismanagement, but nevertheless put us on that tour, and we were playing, our music, which was a little different to say the least to Black Sabbath. So even though nobody knew us when we first went on stage, we were booed, no matter what. where it didn't matter what venue it was because a crowd were coming to see Sabbath. However, being able to having had the experience in my earlier band of how to sort of move your song list and your list around to whatever the audience is looking for, we put in our heavier songs, and generally on the tour we did quite well. I mean, we did it very well, but the issue on that tour was that Sabbath were in the prime of the debauchery period, and really they'd found their liking of the Peruvian marching powder and other things. So it's supposed to be 5 days a week, and they play one day and then take off 3 days after that. So we were kind of like stop starting with them, but it was a tour which was a bizarre one, and generally we went on to get off, but generally we win them around, except for the very last show in LA, which is well documented, and I probably mentioned in the book, where excuse me, um, where again we got booed as well, when we started playing our violin and cello pieces, to a Black Sabbath audience, and the crowd were kind of restless but not bad, and then suddenly a cherry bomb landed on the stage in front of me and my brother Phil, who was in the band at the time. And we did something that no band should ever do: stop playing. You should never ever stop playing. The show goes on no matter what. But we stopped, and I went to the mic and I said, "Listen, this is listen. We're just trying to play." I said it in a polite term that this is not good. Let us play our set. My elder brother, who was a little more mercurial than I am, went up to the mic and said, "You guys are a bunch of C dot 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 TS." And it's been well known, but the boo that went up was, "I wish I could can it and sell it," because it was. Anyway, we were able to finish the set and get the hell off. But actually, during that set, so we played, and we LA was not our place, we realized. But during that set of Sabbaths, they were well oiled with whatever they were using and doing, and it wasn't funny, but it was the fact that when Tony was into a solo, I think in War Pigs or whatever it is, he basically collapsed and was on the stage, and the feedback from the mics from his guitar to the amp was spectacular. But the crowd thought it was a part of the show. I mean, they were cheering like hell, but he wasn't getting up. So 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and the feedback was there, and the crowd were going, "Yeah, this is amazing." And yet the yeah started going, and it started to be a little quieter. And then the roadie literally was able to get him on his feet, and they came off and they didn't finish the show either. So that was a pretty disaster show, the Hollywood Bowl, at the very last Sabbath Gentle Giant show tour.
You were instrumental in the career of Jon Bon Jovi, both as an individual and the band as well. And there's a story that you tell in the book about hearing the tracks from the Slippery When Wet album for the first time. And I guess you're playing it with a bunch of other Polygram executives, and you look at each other and go, there are hit singles here.
Oh yeah.
And in the past few weeks, we've had the documentary about Billy Joel. He brings the Stranger album in to Columbia Records, and they say, it's nice, but we don't hear a hit. Tom Petty put the Full Moon Fever album, gave that to MCA Records. They said, we don't hear a hit. Like, this is Tom Petty. Was there a record for you where you didn't hear a hit and had to work your tail off to make it happen?
You mean with Bon Jovi or
No,
Ted?
no, just in general through the course of your record company career.
Um,
Because Slippery When Wet, you listen to that for the first time, you go, that's a hit. That's
oh,
a hit.
it
I
was
still can't figure out what the guys at Columbia missed with the Stranger album when they first heard it. But
right.
that's a different story.
Yeah, no, when Slippery was done, I mean, I was in Vancouver when it was mixed and done. Wow, it was like in the pocket. I knew this is going to be huge. Um, Yeah, there was one when I was a Polygram. Obviously, when you're president, you can set the priorities. So at ATCO, I set the priorities, and the same thing goes for Roadrunner. There was one song that I signed. I signed Men Without Hats, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, and I love that band. They were quirky as hell, and they had their big hit, "Safety Dance," a couple of years before. They were either the company fell apart, and I re-signed them, and I got to know the guys. I really liked Ivan and the band, and they had this out a new album, and I heard it, and they there was a lot of stuff in there which I didn't like. So I said to the lead guy Ivan, go back to Montreal and rewrite most of the album. But there's one little piece in that you should keep and make it a song which I'll tell you what I put in. Being able to write it myself, I said, here's what you put in, and I helped him write this song called "Pop Goes the World." Um, anyway, he came back and we put that song out, and the promotion department were not sure. And I said, "This, I know this is going to work." And I was, I wasn't the boss, but I was senior vice president then, so I had a little bit of clout. But so I said, "I'm sure this is going to work." And sure enough, little by little, it made the top 10 and reestablished their career, which I'm very happy about. There are other bands, of course, um, in my business side career that should have and could have, certainly a couple of them, which I don't say regret because I don't regret anything, but a band called Dan Reed Network, who I signed to Polygram, they should have been as big as Def Leppard. When I was running Atco, a band called Enough's Enough, which we did very well at. But they were unfortunately self-defeating in many ways for a lot of reasons. But I guess Pop Goes the World is the one where I really fought to get that into the priority list and suddenly and become a hit, and it became a gold record for them, which I'm very happy about.
Artificial intelligence has been all over the place lately. And in fact, it works its way into Gentle Giant's music with you doing some stuff with AI and Gentle Giant. Tell us about that. You talk about it in the book.
Well, I just started working with the highest end, um, higher than Peter Jackson's, uh, um, with an album which we didn't have our multi-tracks. The only one which we're not able to remix, Stephen Wilson's remixed a lot of our catalog, um, an album called In a Glass House. And I'm able to separate not just stems, but literally tracks from that album. And I'm in the process of now remixing, literally remixing, not reimagining it, remixing that album, which I think is one which was that was one we delivered to Columbia when we were about, and they rejected it because they didn't think it was very commercial, and it became gold on import. So this album is going to be released in next year as a remix in 5.1 and Atmos and everything else as a remixed album. So, but it's amazing what the new technology can actually do. It's amazing to me.
I also want to point out that there's an event called Prague Stock, which is coming here to New Jersey in October, the 9th through the 12th at the Rivoli Theater, the Williams Center in Rutherford that you'll be at. And it's if you're into progressive rock, this is the place to be. The book is called Giant Steps, My Improbable Journey from Stage Lights to Executive Heights. There are amazing stories in this book. Derek, it's been a fun read. And thank you so much for your time here this morning on All Mixed Up.
Very good to see you again, Jim. My pleasure.